Well, Julie, thank you so much for taking time for this. I really appreciate it. We're so excited to have you join us for this interview. As we start, can you maybe talk a little bit about your current role and your background?
Yes, I am the Senior Director for Cybersecurity Strategy at GlaxoSmithKline Consumer Healthcare. And my background is variable. I started off in clinical laboratory science and technology in the Navy, active duty, and also did some reserve time. I decided that I wanted a change. So I went back to school for business, and I still was wondering. I had a few medical adjacent roles. For example, delivering continuing medical education for physicians for a major healthcare company in Northern Virginia. I even served 3 years as a defense contractor with L3, doing various project and program management roles there. Mm-hmm. But once I joined the FBI, that's when I got mentored into cyber. And it was really exciting. It was an amazing opportunity, and I will forever be grateful for it. I was at the FBI for 13 years. I've done a number of cool things, such as human intelligence and cyber threat, IT program management, intelligence community liaison, so many things. Spent 2 years, a little over 2 years at Deloitte, which was also a wonderful experience, and then transitioned into an executive leadership role at GlaxoSmithKline.
Amazing. So it's such an amazing career. You have both kind of with your role with FBI and now with the corporate sector. I think you have so many different perspectives working for organizations of different scale and scope, and also different challenges. I think it's amazing from your vantage point. I think you can see things a lot more clearly than a lot of people who kind of they go kind of one track and just stay there. I think it's congrats on an amazing career.
Thank you.
Certainly. So I know you probably hear people talking that cybersecurity in general is just on the forefront of so many organizations, and I think it's a lot more talked about at the board meetings, at the C-level, and I think it's the tides are shifting. So no one wants to be in the news and the headlines in the bad way. And I think there's just a lot more, not just awareness, but also willingness to put effort and resources and budget behind some of those objectives. So naturally, there was a lot more people thinking about transitioning into cybersecurity, maybe from more IT backgrounds, or even students who are still in colleges and universities looking to make a career in cybersecurity. So based on your experience, what will be your advice for kind of maybe more junior professionals? What do you think they should focus on more? What are some of the things that you think they should do?
I think there are two parts to what I would advise. The first part would be to really explore all your options. Cybersecurity is such a broad field, and that's what makes it so wonderful. For example, you can have highly technical roles, moderately technical roles, and completely non-technical roles, and still be a cybersecurity professional. Mm-hmm. For example, cyber involves things like policy, compliance, and audit. Those are very important, somewhat overlooked roles. When people think of cybersecurity, they think of maybe the TV show iRobot or Mr. Robot.
Yeah, catching hackers, catching the bad guys.
Yeah, or just pounding away at a keyboard. That's what people typically envision. But there are so many roles. There's training and development. There's strategic communications. There's developing strategy, right? There are a lot of things that you can do in cyber. And one thing I would say, whether or not you're a cyber professional, is you select a career where it doesn't feel like you're working. If you can go to work every day and you feel like you're doing something you love, like it's one of your hobbies, but you happen to get paid for it, that's the best position to be in, because you'll really thrive.
What a great advice. It's interesting that you say that, because I think a lot of people kind of think, where can I get the biggest paycheck? what's the kind of the coolest and more prestigious career, but they don't realize it's something they'll have to enjoy for years and years and years. So what do you say? I think it actually resonates because we hear from other members, it's kind of the perspective that they bring to the table as well. I'm actually very happy that you voiced that.
Yeah, money is there in cyber. Um, there's a so-called perception of a so-called talent shortage, right? Um, Money is there, right? Now, if you're looking for prestige, then then you have certain things that you need to do in your career. But I got to tell you, you're going to be, if you're lucky, you're going to be alive a long time. And you're going to be working a long time. So if you want to max out on that happiness factor in life, you want to choose wisely. And it's okay to change your mind. I've changed my mind several times, moving from different programs to other programs in the FBI and beyond. And that's another thing that makes it so wonderful. So the second part of the advice, Misha, that I would give is very important. So I'm going to say it carefully and intentionally. Many of us in cyber have not been traditionally groomed to be good communicators and or to care about the so what of the business. A lot of us are groomed to think that the more technical competency we have and the more niche knowledge we have, that is what we should focus on. However, as you pointed out earlier in this conversation, C-suite and business executives now have cyber on the radar, and they are asking, what do I get from you pounding that keyboard? You're asking me for money. What am I going to get out of that investment? What's my ROI in investing in your business line, in cybersecurity? I think it's important to remember today that cybersecurity is a business enabler, just like legal, just like recruiting and HR, just like contracts and procurement. Cybersecurity is a business enabler. We are all around the table to support the people that make the widgets, that sell to customers, that gets the money to pay our salaries. We should not forget that.
Absolutely. So it's not just
Action and communication are key skills.
absolutely. It's interesting you mentioned that. It's I know some executives may view cybersecurity as a cost center, but at the
Yeah,
end of the day, if an entire operation is bricked, as they say, by ransomware, that's the end of the business. So if executives are not aware of the risks and the implications of those risks, and it's on cybersecurity executives to communicate those risks, then it's kind of show-stopping event. And I think communication.
totally agree, totally understand, but I don't think we should let that feed the ego. There's enough ego in cyber because they're very smart, highly technical people.
True.
So I would caution, I would caveat that heavily. Yes, if we do not secure the operation, the business, it could stop the business. But we shouldn't let that get in the way of us being partners to the business leaders.
Absolutely.
We shouldn't allow it to foster a bit of arrogance there. See, traditionally, and what I've seen in my journey is that cybersecurity professionals have a somewhat adversarial relationship with business people in the same organization. And that is what the adversaries enjoy.
It's interesting that you meant. I think it's a theme that we actually hear from with other interviews as well, and I think it's also it takes changing the mind. It's a little bit of a mind shift because oftentimes, to your point, the adversarial relationships is that the business leaders see when they bring a new idea, an innovation they're working on, a new initiative. They fear that if they bring cybersecurity, they'll hear no. We cannot do that. And I think what a lot of CISOs that we talked to, they said the correct approach is this: yes, we can do this. However, there's other things we need to consider as well as part of this initiative. So it's not a no, it's yes, but which is a little bit different. I think it's kind of semantics, but I think it's for cybersecurity, it's on cybersecurity executives to see themselves as enablers, as you mentioned, not as kind of someone who stops the progress, I guess, and becomes a an impediment to kind of business goals?
So I take that a little bit further and more functionally. And this something in my career that I heard really made up my mind that I was doing the right thing. There is a senior leader that I recall in the FBI, and you know, one day I was in a meeting with him and several others, and he said something like, "It's my job to lay across the tracks and stop the program." And inwardly, I cringed. I cringed, literally. I don't know what it was about that particular day or statement, but I will not forget that. And then I watched everyone react to what he said and react to him after that for the rest of his time in the organization. And I decided that my workplace persona would never be anywhere close to that. So my tactic and technique, my TTP is this. Someone comes to me and says that they want to do something. A business person says, I want to do something. And of course, if I'm managing the policies and the rules, they're going to say, am I allowed to do that? I won't answer that question because that's not my role, right? If I'm the purveyor of the information, then it's my job to share the information with you, not to answer whether or not you're allowed to do that. That's for the risk executive to decide. So here's what I do. First of all, if you say, I want to do this, I try to unpack what this really is, because sometimes people think of an end and you can accomplish things with in multiple ways. So I really get in there, communicate with them, and figure out exactly what they're trying to accomplish. What is this? What is this that you want to do, right? Then I take a look at the requirements and the compliance, the rules, regulations, policies. And if it turns out that this doesn't seem to fit in there, we're continuing the conversation. Perhaps there's another way we could do this, but it's in compliance and it's safe. And then if we hit a wall there, well, here's what I do next, right? I still haven't said no. What I do is I say, listen, I'm going to help you fill out the paperwork for the exception request, and we'll go to the executive together. I'll sit right next to you. You can explain, and we'll see what they say.
Absolutely.
And at no time have I, A, said no, B, stop being a partner. And even if the ultimate answer is no, even if no one, the decision maker in the business does not want to accept the risk, that relationship between me and the requester is solid because they know that I'm not an impediment. And if we exhaust all the possibilities, I'm still going to go with you to the decision maker. I'll sit next to you. They have questions, I'll answer, but you will present your case and I'm with you.
Absolutely. So it's almost like, it sounds, when they describe what is that they want, you want to understand why what is the end goal, and it takes a lot of empathy, which is what you talked about, which
Absolutely.
which is I think it's amazing skill set for someone with a technical background. It's but I think something that will get someone out kind of a long way. That's awesome. Switching gears a little bit, Julie, again, from kind of your vantage point and given your experience, if you think, I know these days people talk about various kind of top of mind issues, whether it's ransomware, phishing attacks, cloud security. But if you kind of look into the future, I know 6 months from now, 12 months from now, what top 3 issues you think will be top of mind for CISOs and other cybersecurity executives, whether kind of corporate, federal, state, local, kind of across the board? What would they be?
If your time box is about, you said about a year, right? So within the next 12 months, I think that we all need to remember as cyber leaders that cyber criminals are now well-funded and highly organized. We were just starting to see that at the end of 2020. It really took off in 2021, and I think that should be the baseline expectation. I want to say that again. Cyber criminals are now well-funded. They can afford zero-day exploits. They can afford to buy those. And they are highly organized and agile, right? Whereas most of us in the cyber life are not yet agile, not yet embracing those things. We have a lot of silos inside of our organizations and amongst ourselves. The cyber criminals don't have that. If they can partner with someone unconventional to make money, they will.
Right.
And they'll also sell their criminality as a service. That is a term that I coined. I know I've heard of ransomware as a service, but I'm expanding it to criminality as a service, which will cover ransomware, extortion, and others. It's a thing, it's a business, right? The second thing is that the lines between nation state actors and the cyber criminals are getting blurry. So for example, you could have someone working for a nation state organization by day, and then by night, they're in a ransomware gang, and it's the same TTP, in general. The second thing is, or the third thing is that when you talk about risk, you can talk about like cyber risk and you can quantify it financially, and here's a way. The fines and penalties that are related to data protection, they're going to get bigger because globally countries are enacting legislation for consumer data protection. We see that in China. Russia's going to do that. The US, yeah, but I really feel like eyes on China for that, because like it seems like every other month there's a new China cybersecurity law or data protection or something like that.
Absolutely.
I want to add a fourth. One tool that some companies use is cyber liability insurance to transfer away risk. But the thing about it is, the premiums are getting higher and the coverage is getting lower and more focused and scoped. So we really need to be thinking about how we can become more agile. So I'm going to say zero trust is a good thing to think about. Taking another look at encryption, because quantum computing, IBM cracked the code on quantum computing late last year. So I'm going to say it's about 3 to 5 years before the criminals get a hold of it and they can defeat the regular encryption. We all need to be thinking agile, how we can work together. And we probably need to have empathy and think like some of these criminals so we can anticipate what they may try and not just be so focused on our own little silo. Those are my contributions to your question.
No, it's amazing. And it's interesting. Just to unpack this a little bit, especially the last one, we're hearing that, yes, the premium is getting higher on the insurance, but also the field is getting thinned out because insurance organizations is pulling back because the potential liability is so huge and potentially unquantifiable. They can't even put a number of, it's not the business. Some of them decide that's not the business you want to be in. So
that's the other thing too. We may see a shrinkage of the market there. But one thing that's interesting is like the the stipulations and some of the policies. Like I've seen people online saying that they didn't want to cover log4j, so they said they wrote that out. Now, of course, I'm not talking about anything with GSK. I'm not talking about any current or past employer.
Sure.
I'm just saying what I see as I navigate the community, because I'm very, very much invested in understanding the latest and greatest what goes on. So I'm always on LinkedIn, I'm always on the news feeds, and I'm just telling you that I've seen reports that they're writing out certain things like log4j or nation state attack. It's like, wow, then why do I have the insurance? So
making the case so small that it's almost
it's not worth it. It's almost, is it going to be worth it? But they have to stay in business too, right?
Absolutely.
And a lot of this, again, is a result of like the good guys not necessarily optimizing how they work together, how they communicate, leveraging knowledge from each other. The nice thing is there are organizations like the information sharing centers like HISAC, FISAC, where different organizations within a sector can get together and share information, be on an email chain together, talk about solutions to commonly faced problems. Would love to see more of that. That is amazing. I got to attend an Intel summit with HISAC last year, and I learned so much and met my peers in the community. I want to see more of that. It helps us defeat the criminals.
Absolutely. And it's one of the things that as we're kind of building Afinia and kind of talking about community, what you learn from peers and the support that you get from peers is not something you can get from vendors even that you pay money to. But if you have a question in an immediate answer, reaching out to someone you know personally, you can get the answer from someone whose opinion you trust, not biased, someone who's in the same industry, maybe faced those issues before. It's so incredibly valuable because time is of the essence. You mentioned agility. That's, I think, where the agility is going to come from, when professionals that are shared, they have shared challenges and shared experience, but some of them have dealt already with certain issues. Some of them have knowledge to share. I think making sure, kind of spreading that knowledge and spreading that insight will be paramount to staying agile.
Absolutely.
And again, talking about community, since we're in this topic, talking about Affinia, if you were to say, I like Affinia because, how would you finish that sentence? And kind of in the same vein, what are the things, maybe face-to-face events that we're definitely doing this year? What are some of the things that you think we can do more of or less of?
I like the platform. I explored the website. I really like it. It's easy to use, easy to meet other people that maybe could help with information, or other people that I could provide support to or just network with. I like the emails. I enjoy receiving the emails where we see people newly appointed to a CISA role. I really like seeing that. And I like the sense of community. I would love to have more live meetings when COVID is not so prominent. Different geographical areas would be nice, East Coast, West Coast, so that different people could show up live whenever they want. Maybe a plan for it, maybe in the beginning of the year, a published event schedule so that people can block off their calendars and make plans to attend would be nice.
Certainly. And do you think, kind of in this vein, do you think it would make sense more kind of informal social events, I don't know, dinners of sorts, or do you think it's more kind of getting an interesting speaker or panel, someone with perspective, with this kind of short presentation, and then have a social portion of the event? Maybe, what are your thoughts on that?
You've got a little party going on in your background.
Things like that.
Yeah, I think a mix would make sense. If you're looking at something quarterly, it could be maybe the big event or the conference is once a year, but then the less formal gatherings could be once a quarter. It gives people a chance to meet each other live, and then maybe once a month it's a Zoom call. So make it easy, but just kind of a mix so that people can ebb and flow as they need to.
Certainly.
And then if it's published in advance, people can go, well, no, this is my Affinia time. I'm going to block this off.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think giving people kind of advance notice makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think we're coming up on time. Couple last questions. One is, well, cybersecurity in general is an evolving area. There's always something new threat vectors, new technologies, new kind of point of view. Where do you go to learn about things, again, emerging, whether it's a new technology or emerging kind of threat vectors? How do you get up to speed about all things new in cybersecurity?
There are a number of channels, from the very simple and automated to the live. So for example, if I'm nerding out on a specific topic of the moment, I will set up a Google alert for it. And it only takes 3 or 4 days before I'm the one with the latest knowledge. And it's like sandwich bites. For example, if I set up a Google alert for blockchain, right? Immediately every day I'll get news alerts and information about blockchain, and I can take 10 minutes while I'm stretching or drinking tea to read it. And that's like a 10-minute investment over the course of a couple of days, and then all of a sudden I have top of my knowledge for blockchain.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's very simple and automated, low time investment, high impact as far as knowledge base. More time investment and more energy, especially because I'm an introvert, is joining industry groups and actually socializing with people and having conversations. So those are the two. It's different spectrum of ways, but I like the combination of it. So.
I understand. And do you get feedback on vendors as well through kind of those channels, through kind of the community?
That's part of the industry groups. I mean, some of the industry groups have vendors present, not hardcore sales pitches or anything, just like, hey, this is what we're working on. What do you think? And then that gives me more topics to do searches on and automatic news feeds on, right? But for me, it's like a blend of like the automatic type of news feeds, the industry events, which could include vendor presentations,
Mhm.
roundtable discussions, even prepping for a roundtable discussion. You'll find something you didn't know yesterday, because that's how cyber is, and that's part of why I love it.
Awesome, awesome. And so you've educated yourself about certain technology or certain kind of area, and now there is a kind of a business need, and you're selecting vendors. And for some of those areas, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of different vendors. How do you kind of shrink those dozens of vendors to a short list? I know some people use Gartner or G2 Crowd, or attend like demos or white papers. Again, networking. What's your preferred method
Um,
of selecting the top
again,
one, top of the line?
yep, again, not speaking on behalf of any current or past
Absolutely.
employers. However, if I'm thinking about this logically, I probably use a blend of all of those things that you're talking about. For example, like let's say, someone that's in government, they have access to ratings on vendors. So and there's this whole apparatus, of selection. There's a lot of rules around that. Maybe in the private industry, it's a little bit different, a little less stringent, but you may look at something like past performance, reputation. You may check your network, but to me, you should have fair and open competition.
Mhm.
You should put out a proposal and then evaluate what comes back fairly, dispassionately, analytically. I really believe in fairness, because if we keep dipping in the same wells, we're ultimately hurting the industry, because we'll starve companies that want to be involved too, right? We'll keep going back to the same source. So to me, it's like you put out your RFP, you see what comes back, you check around, you go to their site, you look at their list of previous customers, all of this due diligence, right? But it should all be fair and above board. That's how
Absolutely.
I see it.
Absolutely. Last question. Assuming the bad guy's not going to go away for a while, but if you had a magic wand and if you could change one thing about cybersecurity, what would it be?
Oh man, just one thing.
One thing.
The good guys would be more agile, just as agile as the criminals, or just 25% more agile.
Awesome. Awesome. I think, Julie, this was amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I think this was an amazing interview. I really appreciate it.
Awesome.